everybody. We got other stories to cover here, and so I do want to make sure, as I remind everybody, if you're just tuning into the premiere, my name is Kev Phares. You're watching Speechless. I'm a 22-year-old conservative college student out of Central Illinois, host of Speechless on Cities 92.9, but this is my daily show. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you're thinking about everything, and share it with your friends if you got any. Next story out of Fox News. We're going to talk about this issue 1 in the state of Ohio. And you might not be from Ohio, but this will have implications on the future of our election, of our national elections and issues that could be on the ballot. So a lot of people are tying this into abortion. However, abortion was not on the ballot as Ohioans took to the polls earlier this week for a high stakes referendum. But the contentious issue was clearly on the mind of voters in the Republican-dominated state's special election Tuesday. Ohio's state issue 1 became a proxy battle over abortion before it was convincingly rejected by voters on Tuesday, defeating an attempt by Republican lawmakers to make it more difficult for the public to propose and approve changes to the Buckeye State's constitution. Now, I am not from Ohio. I am from Illinois. I do have an uncle that actually lives in Ohio, though, in case anyone was wondering. But I have some friends from Ohio, youth conservative activists, and Ohio residents. My friends, Alex and John Daoud, they are here to talk with me a little bit more about what this means for Ohio. How you doing, everybody? Make sure your mics are unmuted as well.
Yep, I think we're good here.
Yeah, we're all good here.
There are my friends. They are twins, in case anyone was wondering. So let's just start off, because you guys are Ohio residents. You guys, around what part? Don't obviously give like your address or anything, but around what part of Ohio are you guys from?
No, Northeast Ohio, so kind of around Cuyahoga County, which is actually one of the pivotal counties in regards to issue 1. So we're very close to Lake Erie. You're about a 15-minute drive from there.
And to clarify, just for anyone who's not familiar with what's in what county, we live a little ways outside of Cleveland. So if you know what Cleveland is, just imagine that. Yeah.
And you guys go to college in Ohio as well, right?
That's right.
Yes, we go to the College of Worcester, which is in Warren County, which is about an hour south from here.
Awesome. And so let's break this down. So you guys are from Ohio, you're college students. What was issue 1? A lot of people are bringing it about abortion. We'll talk about that a little bit. But for everybody watching, can you just break down what issue 1 was in Ohio?
Sure. So fundamentally, you're exactly right. As you said earlier, it really does not have anything to do with abortion, like in terms of like what's actually written in issue 1. Mm-hmm. So state issue 1 or issue 1 is an amendment that aims to elevate the standard of qualifying and passing a constitutional amendment in the state of Ohio. So I think the best way to explain like what's in it is just by saying what does it mean when you vote yes on it, and then what does it mean if you vote no?
Gotcha.
So let's take the 3 points of contention here. So if you vote yes to issue 1, that means you're raising the required majority for the passage of an amendment in the Constitution from 50% plus 1 to 60%. So it takes 60% of the vote to actually pass an amendment to the Constitution. Second, instead of requiring signatures to initiate the amendment from 44 counties in Ohio, said voting yes on issue 1 would require all 88 counties. Or signatures from all 88 counties in order to actually initiate the process of that amendment. And then finally, it also eliminates the 10-day cure period for gathering signatures on initiated amendments. So that just means, let's just say you have like some invalid ballots for whatever reason. Basically, you don't get a chance to alter the ballots. You don't get a chance to redo any ballots. It just eliminates that cure period completely. So then basically voting no for it just makes it so nothing actually changes. So it would, if you voted no, it would stay the 50 plus 1 majority. It would stay remaining. You only need 44 counties for signatures. And then there would just remain that 10-day cure period.
Mm-hmm. And so it did fail. And so it stayed the same. But what was the purpose of proposing this in the first place?
Well, I think that very much depends on what narrative you're looking at.
Okay.
Right. So let's take the left, for example. The narrative that's being pushed through is the point is to undermine democracy. That's always the whole thing. It's always about undermining your democracy, right? It violates the sacred principle of one person, one vote. Mm-hmm. And so the point is to just make it harder for anyone to put anything in the Constitution. But then the right puts it like, we're just trying to make it so every county actually has some voting power. Right. So you could make the argument that though it doesn't undermine one person, one vote. That's not the case. Mm-hmm. It's definitely designed to make it so every county actually does like have a chance, like actually have a voice. But then also it makes it so, we're not allowing like radical groups to come in and just easily change the Constitution whenever we want to permanently. So
Yeah.
this measure was put in place to make it so that doesn't happen, or at least we can mitigate it as much as possible.
All right, that makes a little bit more sense, because when I was trying to read about it, I was seeing everybody's making it about abortion. And so when I was reading a little bit more about it and I learned a little bit about what you were just talking about, it made a bit more sense, because there's an abortion constitutional amendment being proposed in November. Tell me a little bit more about what that is and how it ties into this amendment one.
All right. So the issue, so as you were mentioning, like a lot of this bill, which has nothing to do with abortion, was put in the context of it to sort of like justify the ruling of it toward the end. So when the abortion bill itself is meant to amend a bill that's currently under judicial review in Ohio that I think was passed in 2019. It was the bill that would allow for abortion to be banned after 6 weeks, which had actually been shot down by a local court sometime very recently. However, it's not really been set into Ohio law. So what this bill is going to do in November is that it's going to effectively give people their bodily autonomy, or whatever you want to call it. And the state's completely prohibited from interfering. But with that being said, the bill will still prohibit abortion after 22 to 24 weeks. So it's basically just widening the window in which case that you're allowed to get an abortion. But even in that case, you are the state is still completely neutered in terms of being able to do anything about it before then. So it's going to basically, a lot of pro-abortion or pro-abortion rights activist groups are saying that this is a huge win for them, as it just gives them more time to decide whether or not they want the baby or not. But what the bill's in, like I said, it's kind of based on the bill that was passed in 2019 in order to keep it from ever really reaching Ohio law. So it's kind of going to be seen as like a roadmap in order to actually further the abortion movement in Ohio and other maybe Republican states as well, as in by kind of swaying the votes in the much darker blue counties in these states, as they consider to be like gems in the Democratic Party. So
absolutely. So tie in a little bit more this issue 1 and how it relates to the abortion argument.
Well, I do want to sort of get into, before I get into that, sort of how the distribution of the result actually came out to. So Trump won Ohio at 53% in 2020, but the bill only made it to about 43% here. And so across all 88 counties, the distribution was about 43 for and 57 against. So the highest shoot down of the bill actually came from the county that we reside in, Cuyahoga. 76% voted no on the issue in our county alone. And in the 8 Ohioan urban counties voted 65% against. The 7 suburban counties in Ohio were 55% against. But then the remaining 73 rural counties were overwhelmingly positive for it. It was like 61% yes, 30% no, whatever maybe. Now, a couple of the counties that were actually a little split on the issue were actually 2 very conservative counties: Warren County, which is where our school resides, and Butler County, which were only voted slightly less no than yes. It was like 47 to 49 respectively. And the issue is that it did not split party lines at all. It was not a party issue. No, it's not all Republicans voting yes, all Democrats voting no. It was very split, especially in the very conservative and very rural counties. Like they weren't as definitive victories as was predicted at that point. So basically in 2024, what it means for the abortion bill that I've mentioned is that it's the same counties that probably voted no are going to have just as much power. And the main problem with that is that the GOP is actually very split on the issue, because there are a lot of GOP,
definitely wanted to get into that a little bit.
Yeah, there are a lot of GOP candidates that that want to kind of further the issue on abortion, but then the others want to pivot and talk about different issues. So we could say that this is a referendum on what may happen in 2024, in the sense that if this bill was shot down, that it could mean that any pro-abortion bills to come after may be more likely to get passed or blocked, depending on what they're going for. But with that being said, we could also still see more Republicans voting against that kind of bill later, but we're not really. But again, we don't know how the rural counties are going to vote in terms of their conservative values, because this bill didn't really, in my opinion, I didn't think the bill really split party lines, because I didn't think it was either a really conservative or a very liberal issue. I didn't see it as like an actual value issue, and it was more just
the issue 1 that we're talking about, right? Yeah.
Yes, I didn't see it as I didn't see it as an overwhelmingly Republican thing to say yes, or overwhelmingly Democrat to say no. I think the reason it was so split is because I think a lot of people wanted to see how it would affect bills later. But because abortion was put into it, that's why it became almost a party issue.
It made it easier for people to say. It made more that dichotomy, because it's not a straightforward bill where it's like, oh, you either support abortion or you don't. It's more like, oh, well, how do you think that amendments should be added to the Constitution? Which your average person, I mean, like I'm in political science. You guys are obviously well steeped in conservative activism and politics, and so like we can understand it. But somebody who goes and works a 9 to 5 and then has to take care of kids in the evening, it's not as much of a simple thing to understand.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. And if it wasn't put in the context of an abortion bill, I'm sure the voting would have gone somewhat differently. But the whole point, but the whole narrative was driven on the abortion bill that would come later, and that's what drove a lot of the voting. And a lot of the ads that I saw were mostly for no, and that came under the fire of the one person, one vote, but mostly in the bash against abortion rights. So that's where a lot of the narrative came into. So we're basically not sure what's going to come into. So it's
yeah, I got you. In terms of Ohio, at least, do you think that this abortion rights, the extension of how long you can get an abortion, do you think that'll pass? And based on what you saw in this, do you think that you'll likely see that enshrined into your Constitution in November?
I think so. I think in some respect it's definitely, I think, more of a toss up, because I think like Ohio used to be much more of like Alex had mentioned before. Ohio used to be much more of a swing state, but then like after 2020 it became very deep red. So there's still a chance that like, I think it's now more of a toss up. I won't say for sure like Democrats have like now way more of a chance than they did before. It's very much like, okay, are we going to come out and actually vote on these issues more now that we know, hey, some of these counties, depending on how some people might read it, hey, now some of these other red counties don't have as much of a voice anymore, and that bothers me. So I'm probably going to go and vote against whatever new measure they might have, because that keeps me from having a voice and so forth. So I think keep in mind it's going to be more of a toss up, but I'm not going to say it looks bad just yet. I'm still optimistic.
Yeah. Do you agree with that, Alex?
I would say for me, it's also kind of a toss up, but I also recognize that this issue coming up is also more of a party lines issue. You're going to see a bit more of a trend in Republicans probably voting to block the bill, and then a lot of Democrats voting to pass the bill. And with that being said, I think in this case, a lot of the rural counties are probably not going to be as split this time on the bill. I think a lot of them are going to come out and vote overwhelmingly no for the bill to make sure that it's blocked. And the same counties that voted heavily no on the bill are probably going to vote yes on this kind of bill, the coming abortion bill. So I think there is a chance that the voters will probably turn out on this coming bill. But with that being said, I think when it comes to the rhetoric and then the advertisement for it, I think a lot of politicians are still kind of split on it, where I said, like, a lot want to focus on different issues, but then there's still one that really want to push forward the abortion bill to show why this needs to be blocked. And I think, like John said, it is a toss-up. I think, again, there will be more voters that are voting on party lines, but will it amount to the percentage needed to, say, block the bill? That's harder to tell, given that that issue one failed at a 14-point margin. It's kind of hard to say now, given the climate.
Yeah, you're not 100% sure. Well, that's one thing that I've noticed, especially with the issue of abortion, is that you can get, it seems as though you can get some moderate Republicans towards the liberal side on that specific issue, especially based on the marketing, where oftentimes liberal and lefty institutions will push out messages saying Republicans hate women, pro-life people hate women. You need to be, if you're pro-rights, you need to be pro-abortion, all that kind of stuff. When we bring it to the broader level, in 2022, there was many people that claimed that the reason why there was not the red wave that was predicted was because of the overturning of Roe Wade and Democrat messaging on the pro-choice, pro-life issue, on the issue of abortion. What do you guys think? Ohio seems to be almost kind of like a test state for the abortion issue in 2024. You've left yourselves a lot of ambiguity on what you guys think will actually happen in Ohio. But how do you think the messaging, and again, I'm not an expert on anything. I don't have my degree. You guys are we're all just college kids shooting the shit. But what do you guys think the Republican strategy should be on the abortion issue in 2024? Should they be more wishy-washy and back off, or should they go full force?
Well, I think that very much depends, because I think, just bring it back for 1 second, one of the main reasons I think why abortion was like so much at the forefront for issue one was because one of the drafts for the first one was basically saying abortion will be banned, I think, after like anytime after 6 weeks, and apparently like I think we've spoken about this before. Any sort of, it also in some respect does not, that also includes if it endangers the life of the mother, or it has to be like very much like endangers the life of the mother.
Yeah.
And for a lot of I think Republicans, maybe like moderate ones, that could very much be a turnoff, right?
Yep.
So I think like if the Republican Party is going to go full force on abortion in 2024, they should also make it clear like they should
Define
be
their
very
terms.
they should very, very much define their terms, right?
Mhm.
Like, don't get me wrong, like saying like, protecting the mother, protecting the child, that's great. Like of course that's what we want to do. But then we should definitely be very much more concrete and say, this is what we mean when we say, we're not just saying protect children, protect the mothers. Like we want to say why it is. And we understand that, like, we understand there are circumstances, but we're still very firm on protecting life. So if they can at least iron out those terms, then I am confident that if they go for full force, they can succeed.
Gotcha.
I will
Alex?
follow up that as well. I think there is a big emphasis on the rhetoric, and I'm not like the huge on like the over fetishization of like semantics and all that. Like I kind of get why that's in some cases is very unnecessary. But I think in the context of abortion, the issues like when it comes down to the legislation, I don't think the sometimes the wording or even the rhetoric promoting certain bills has always been very good. There was a board of gynecologists that I believe wrote some sort of draft on about the bill before it like issue 1 was starting to really become like a huge issue, and it was something about like ectopic pregnancy, which is not exactly an abortion. It's just a medical procedure where the only way that it would be carried out is if the placenta ruptured.
Yep.
And that's not. And
well, and the
that's
other
actually very
the
scary.
other thing, it's really scary. And the other thing about an ectopic pregnancy, it's a hard word to say first. Second is the fact that it's when a pregnancy takes place, or not really a pregnancy. It's when an egg is fertilized outside of the uterus, which is not like that. There is 0% chance that will be a human life that will be a survivable human life. And so that's why many people do not consider it abortion. However, your lefties will continuously try to say that that's the reason why we Republicans want to endanger the life of the mothers, because they won't allow for abortion of ectopic pregnancies. Well, it's not even technically considered an abortion because it is not the removal of a viable fetus. It is the removal of a fetus that will not survive, just to clarify. But you can keep going too. I just want to make sure everybody who's watching.
We've spoken to actually various physicians, including a couple of OBGYNs that we know, and a lot of it comes down to that there are some of these things that are just medical procedure. It doesn't matter what the legislation is. Some things are just done because they have to be done. So a lot of this idea that abortion be completely banned across all fronts in every form, whether it's actually an abortion or not, that's a lot of that stuff is not actually going to change, because some medical procedures are just going to have to still be performed the way they are because they've always been that way. Legislation can't affect the way, like, especially if it comes to endanger life of the mother. Some pregnant operations are just done because that's how the laws are set in the medical institutions. So even some of these bills can't actually, with the poor rhetoric that they can't actually fully enforce the rhetoric as it's written. So when it comes down to it, a lot of the fears that come with some of these abortion bills, minus perhaps some of the bans, it doesn't really affect someone's individual right that much, or even at all in a lot of cases. So a lot of it's fear mongering. And I think and again, a lot of the issues with issue 1 is that a lot of people do not read what the bill actually did. And when it came down to the voting, a lot of people saw what the bills, both the abortion and the issue 1, what they're going to say. They read them for the first time at the ballot box. And that's what it comes down to, like being able to articulate what is actually being considered to be put into law, and then being able to either promote it or cover it up in a way that's actually honest, because a lot of the rhetoric hasn't been very honest, because no one 100% knows what they're for or against. And I think that's a lot of it comes down to the way it's being advertised and whatever narrative is trying to be, or what agenda is trying to be fulfilled, if you will.
Absolutely. Well, guys, I really appreciate you coming on and giving me your Ohioan expertise. Any last words you have for everybody watching out there?
Well, I guess other than do your own research, make sure you're reading from reliable sources, and before you go to the ballot box, you actually know what you're voting for. Then otherwise, I'm good here. I think thank you for having us on the show. That's all I want to say.
Of course, thank you guys so much. You guys are 19, right? Both of you?
20. We're actually going to be 21.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry
2
about that. I wasn't totally remembering, but everybody, these are 20-year-old. I'm the 22-year-old, 20-year-old college, two 20-year-old college students, twins, that obviously have great heads on their shoulders. Thanks you, Alex and John, again for coming back on. Have a wonderful rest of your day, guys, and we'll be in touch for some future Ohio news. Thank you, guys.
You got it.
Take care.
Awesome.
Appreciate you.
Awesome. See you guys. Okay, guys, so those were obviously my friends Alex and John from Ohio. Did an amazing job laying out exactly what Ohio issue 1 was, why it failed, and then what are we going to see in the future from Ohio in terms of abortion and at a national level in terms of what we should be doing. I asked Alex and John regarding their opinions on whether or not Republicans should back away from the issue or should go full force. What do you guys think? Leave me a comment. Should Republicans be unapologetically 100% pro-life, or do you think that could affect their electability in terms of our 2024 primary and general elections? What should the Republican conservative strategy be? Even if you're a Democrat, what do you think Republicans should be doing if they want to win? Try to put yourself in that shoes. But everybody, as we move on to this next story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and again, leave me a comment and share everything else. But we're going to move on.